celebrate what's different, knowing we're all the same. You will learn from me, and I will learn from you, and we'll spread the light to others every day.
Welcome back to Barber National Institute's podcast, Celebrate What's Different, where we explore the stories, ideas, and conversations shaping a more inclusive world. I'm your host, Tammy Roach, and today we're diving into a topic that touches all of us, and that's advocacy. So what does advocacy really mean, and how can each of us become a strong advocate for the people around us, especially individuals with disabilities? Joining me today is Bill Harriger, Chief Project Officer at Barber National Institute, and self-advocates Kelly Shreve and Passle Helminski. So thank you all so much for joining us. I want to get started by talking about the foundation of advocacy and level setting us by defining what disability is and isn't. So it's my understanding at its simplest that disability is a condition that affects our daily life. Perhaps it's mobility, communication, learning, or behavior. But it's also important to remember that disabilities exist on a spectrum and that every individual's experience is unique. So before we can really talk about advocacy, we've got to talk about something that really still stands in the way for all of us and for real inclusion, and that's stigma. So stigma really is a misunderstanding. People think that disability always means there's a limitation or that individuals with disabilities can't live independently, work meaningful jobs, or even contribute to society. Well, we know that that is not true. Many individuals with disabilities navigate barriers that most of us never see. So inaccessible buildings, bathrooms, difficulty accessing transportation, or assumptions, just general assumptions made about disabilities. And I think the other thing that's disheartening is that society often frames disability as a tragedy. But I know, and you know, that individuals with disabilities are really, really proud of who they are. So I want to talk to you, Kelly and Passle. In your life, just in your day-to-day, what are some misconceptions or barriers that you most often encounter? And either of you can answer.
Well, now that I have my service dog again, people think they have to interact with my service dog. And they don't realize they're undoing the training. So I try to be politely as I can, saying, I'm grateful that you think she's beautiful, that you want to pet her. However, she's working right now. Mm-hmm. And it would do her a lot of good to focus on me, not anything else here to keep us safe. Mm-hmm. Or people assume when they see me, they say, oh, I don't know how to talk to you. Mm. I'm like, I don't bite. Yeah. Hi, how are you? Let's have a conversation, Or they assume that I can't function or I can't hear or I can't see or something. Mm-hmm. They make assumptions which is not true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that, somebody coming up to you, knowing maybe how to make eye contact with you, realizing
Correct.
That you have a visual impairment. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Kelly, how about you? When you think about even at you said you volunteer at the Anna shelter, right? So have you had an instance maybe where someone at the Anna shelter has thought that you can't do something, and what might that be?
Yes, I have. They ask me to clean the litter boxes. Mm-hmm. And that's way too many to clean right now. 300 is way too many for me to handle.
Sure.
And when I tell them no, they ask why. I tell them it's too much. I get overwhelmed very easily. Mm-hmm. that I can't, do it.
Sure. So
they understand it now, and they don't ask me to do it. They have me do something else that's more easier for me to do without feeling overwhelmed or pressured into it.
So in that case, you were advocating for yourself by communicating.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's really good. And I think that that's important. What's along those lines, like what's a misconception that you wish more people understood? Like that's untrue, that you wish people understood that is just not something that's true about me with my abilities. And again, to either
That
of
I
you.
can achieve anything I put my mind to and probably outdo the next person next to me.
Okay. That's good. Do you have this determination inside of you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. How about you, Kelly? What's something you want somebody to know about you, about your abilities?
I want them to treat me with respect, for me and for the disability. I can do anything if I put my mind to it. I started painting rocks and stuff, and I enjoy it because people think that I couldn't do it, and I'm enjoying every moment of it.
Oh, that's great. Do you put the rocks around town? Can I find any of your rocks?
I'm going to do it this summer.
Okay.
This summer. It's in a process.
Okay. All right. Well, good. Well, I will look forward to that. So the next step, once we've kind of defined what some of those misconceptions are, we want our listeners to become allies and to use our voice. And sometimes I think that typical people, frankly, are intimidated and don't really know how to be respectful of someone with a disability. And Passle, you mentioned this about making eye contact. So, so the question, isn't really complicated, but it is something that I think, again, people don't exactly know how to engage with somebody with a disability. So, what advice would you give? And Bill, I want to bring you into this too. Like, what advice would you give to someone who really, who might see someone with a disability in the community, whether it be in a public place or at church or at school, but they're just not really sure how to start. How do they become an advocate, an ally of that person? And I guess I'll open it up to any of you. Like, what advice would you give to our listeners?
I would say let's all live by the golden rule.
Thank you.
And that is
Thank you.
do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And treat everyone with respect and the dignity that they need and they all deserve. We're all human beings. We all deserve every level of dignity and every sense of responsibility that is ours to have and ours to maintain. And I'll give you an example. When you go to a restaurant with some friends, sometimes they might approach you to make all the decisions for the table, and instead of doing that, pull in Kelly and say, "Well, Kelly, what do you think looks good on the menu?" And now the server has to interact and going to recognize Kelly and talk about perhaps what's on the menu and what Kelly might like and might enjoy, and that might just change that server's attitude. Might just show them a whole different world that they haven't been accustomed to before.
Yeah, I love that. What do you think? What's advice you would give?
I tell people to take a deep breath if they don't know how to interact with people. Exhale a couple of times, approach us with a smile on your face. We'll probably smile back and ask if we need help.
Okay.
And
Ask if you need help.
If we need help, and if we don't, accept that. And if we need help, listen to us. Don't talk over us as we're talking to you. Sometimes it happens. I know people try to be extra helpful and they get excited and they assume what we're going to say next. But just treat us with respect like we would treat you.
Yeah, that's really good advice. My sister-in-law actually is a little person. And so this is something that I see on a regular basis when we're out in the public. People making assumptions, but it's true. She'll be in a bathroom and things we don't think about. She can't reach the sink to wash her hands after she's gone to the bathroom, or the paper towel dispenser might be up too high. And it is interesting to see people, and I love it when I see someone say to her, "Can I get that for you? Can I turn that on for you?" And right, she will say yes or she will say no, but it's always just wanting to be seen and respectful. And Kelly, how about you? I mean, what's something that that you wish you could tell someone about you that about how you like to be treated?
I wish people would see me for me and not my disability.
Okay.
Because I have an 18-year-old nephew who's autistic. And when I first started talking to him, he would lash out at me. But now when I see him, he's like all lovable and everything, and he'll say sorry. But people look at him and, treat him differently because the way he acts. But it just breaks my heart when I see people treat, somebody with like autism or any type of disability. It just breaks my heart where I just want to really lash out at him and tell him, hey, he has autism, just, like give him a minute.
Yeah. Well, you're advocating. That's advocating. You're standing up for him and for yourself at the same time. So you're doing exactly what it is that we're talking about. And again, how great for our listeners. So I want to start with just sort of what advocacy is. It's a word that we hear a lot, and I think sometimes it's really confusing as to what it is. And advocacy really is just about using your voice, as you just said, Kelly, and as you did. And I loved the example of the server, because you're right. Oftentimes, as you said, you get talked over. So, Bill, in your role, and you have a lot of experience that you bring to this, what accessibility challenge do you most often see in communities?
I think it's more of the inclusion. Since the Americans with Disabilities Act has come in, there's a lot more ingress and egress assistance that's helping. I mean, back when I worked in the grocery store 100 years ago, there was the push pads that you could touch, roll the cart over and the door would open up. Now there's automatic doors, motion sensors. There's the pads you can push that will open the door for you. There's ramping. There's spaces at tables and restaurants. There's handicap accessible bathrooms, in most places. One that I touched on while I was working with a group in Pittsburgh was actually we were gifted 2 season tickets to the Steelers. Yeah. And so I thought, well, this is just a wonderful, occurrence for us to be able to have some of our clients and some of our residents to attend the Steeler game. Everybody wears black and gold 7 days a week. It doesn't matter if it's in season or out of season. And so I called up the Acrisure Stadium and I said, so what's the scoop with these tickets are great, but they're in the middle of a 30-row or 30-seat row, seats 13 and 14. So it's not very ambulatory accessible. And they said, well, we do have some handicap accessible sites that you could take a wheelchair and you could trade those tickets in for that. So I said, well, what's the procedure for that? And they said, well, on game day, you show up and you exchange your tickets. And I said, well, how many do you have? And I can't remember the number of locations that they said. So I said, well, what if I come in and they're already spoken for? And there was silence on the other end. And so so I threw out a little vignette to just kind of walk a mile in my shoes, if you will. And I said, so we get all bundled up. We come down to the game. We're all excited. We find some parking and it's accessible. We come into the stadium. We're ready to exchange our tickets. And we're told, sorry. Now what do we do? And again, there was silence. And so I said, if I could make one suggestion, it would be that you come up with a reservation system, to do this. And in fact, 2 days ago, I checked because I knew we were going to have this conversation today. And sure enough, they now have a reservation system where you apply 10 days in advance, and then you're notified that if you have an accessible place.
Yeah.
And so that problem was kind of solved in my mind. So it's really placing people in your circumstances and how you want to be treated. And I think that was a little bit of a win. So.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly the point of our conversation that we're having today. I think sometimes when we think about advocacy, we think of big sweeping change, but sometimes it's just the small things,
baby steps,
that really can make a difference in your church or your hair salon, your neighborhood. It's just being aware, as we've talked about today, and just being a good ally, a good friend, and treating everyone the way that you would want to be treated. So for individuals that are, for folks that are listening, what is kind of one piece of advice that you would give on how they can be a better ally? We've already talked about, seeing you and asking for help, but is there other ways that would be meaningful to be an ally for people with disabilities?
Just think if you were in our shoes, like you said before, and breathe.
You keep going back to the breathing.
We are people just like you. We're not going to flip out on you. We're not going to bite you. We're not going to chase you. We want to be here. We want to interact with you as much as possible. We want to live our life independently like you do. So embrace us, and we'll embrace you back.
Any closing thoughts from either Kelly or you, Bill?
I think it's just basically it's a sign of respect and showing respect, and pulling people into the conversations that you're having, and showing abilities rather than disabilities. And who knows,
Excellent.
when you change one person's mindset, perhaps you don't know what that snowball effect would be, or the next person that they're going to meet who has a unique ability, and where they might go with that. And you just hope that it gets passed on.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And it starts with simple conversations like we're having today. So as we come to the end of today's conversation, I am struck by a couple of things. One, I loved the idea of the wait staff, the server at the restaurant. I thought that was a really great point, something that I can also take forward in my own life. Passle, you shared about just wanting to be seen, to not be talked over. I think that is a really important piece of advice, and asking someone, is it okay? Would you like me to? Can I help you? Okay. And for the typical person, being okay with whatever the response is. And then Kelly, you had shared just really wanting to be seen for who you are and valued for who you are, and not by what you can't do, but what you can do. And you gave a really great example of advocating for yourself, where you do your volunteer work and saying, this is overwhelming me. So articulating that, and then saying, but here's what I can do. And I think those are all really three very different messages that we can take forward. And I hope that our listeners will find those to be very valuable. I thank you for being here for this brief but yet very important conversation. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us for this episode of Barber National Institute's podcast, Celebrate What's Different. If you found this conversation valuable, share it, give us a follow, and continue learning with us. Together, we're creating a world where people of all abilities belong and reach their full potential. Until next time, I'm Tammy Roach, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
You will learn from me, and I will learn